All right, my friends, welcome to Iron Sharpens Iron. Today we're going to be talking about the concept of when you feed your faith, your doubts will starve to death.
Mm.
Let's talk about it. But Solo, dude, wasn't that conversation with David just pure gold?
So good. I had like a list of questions, right? Feeling like, okay, I got to be a good interviewer. I got to make sure I'm asking, thought-provoking questions. I didn't ask any of them. Just his story in general, just what he went through from A to Z was a better parable than any question that I could have ever asked to share and show some kind of message. So I loved it.
I think you and I just kind of sat there in shocked silence
That's
the
kind of what
entire
it felt
time,
like,
just
right?
like, whoa, wow.
Yeah, like I've been through some things, but I've never been uprooted from my country, my home, my language, my culture, and thrown into a completely different culture. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the language. I couldn't communicate. Just going from a straight A student to a flunking student and then grinding my way back up to the top because he, for all intents and purposes, in our society is at the top.
Yeah.
So it was crazy to hear.
He's done amazing things. So, to our listeners, Sol and I have talked about this, and we're going to do a couple follow up episodes and dive deeper into some of the principles that David shared last week. And the first one we want to talk about is self doubt. But before we start on that, we wanted to take a moment and just speak directly to each of you, our listeners, because we have one big ask for each of you. We have received so much positive feedback about the content we are producing, and we're like, it's bringing me to literal tears when I hear from you all about the impact our content and our message is having on your individual lives. And I want to share a couple examples, some recent ones. So my father is one of our biggest fans, Solo, and I
Really?
shared this podcast with a former classmate of mine, and I heard back from this friend that, in particular, this is a couple days after my dad shared the podcast. He listened to it. And he listened to our episode on gratitude, and he asked my dad for my number. I haven't talked to this friend in several years, and he reached out and sent me a message and said, "Jake, like that episode was a direct answer to a prayer."
Really?
And I mean, I was so truly touched to hear that. And then this past weekend, I took my youngest child, Noah, to a friend's house, and I was chatting with the mother of this friend of his, 'cause she's in this new home, and so I was congratulating her on the new home she's got. And she shared how impactful last week's episode with David had been because she also came to the US with a very similar language barrier. And so
Really?
she was unable to communicate with folks and everything else. And now she's a single mom, and she was able to very much relate to that message. And so she was just very grateful as well. And so, to our listeners, friends, our goal that Sol and I have is for these messages that we are sharing to reach millions of listeners every week. We are trying to combat all the negative influences that are so pervasive in this world, and they drag people down, and we've all been there whether it's the media, the literal mainstream media, whether it's social media, whatever it is, there's just a lot of negativity and things that are trying to tear each of us down. They'll tear down our spirits, tear down our emotions, tear down our self-confidence, all of these things trying to hold us back. And this is doubly true for the young people of today. But
Hmm.
to do that, to reach this goal and to spread this message, we need your help. And so if you haven't done so yet, please hit that follow button if you're listening on our podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share these videos and episodes that are impacting you in a positive way. Please share it with your entire network. If you do so, if you share with just even 10 people every week, you will be a help to creating a movement that is going to transform thousands upon thousands and even millions of lives for the better. And it seems kind of braggadocious and audacious to say, like, hey, this message that Solo and I are sharing each week is going to positively impact millions of people. But if you think it how meaningful it has been for you, that is the same thing that can happen for everybody in your network as well.
Yeah. I think that, so for me, I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank you especially, Jake. Thank you, man. This has been huge for we're talking about self-doubt in today's episode. And I think all of us have a certain amount of imposter syndrome, but the insecurities that I have inside of me could eat me alive. Got a good exterior, extroverted, put on a good front, got a tie, but that imposter syndrome voice, that chatterbox that just says you're not enough, you're not going to do it, maybe you're full of you know what, it's just really loud sometimes. And for whatever reason, every time we get here in our little studio, in the same desks that we sit at work, doing the same type of things, speaking and talking through a camera, it just disappears for some reason. It's gone. And I'm filled with this, what I like to call truth bumps. It's like goosebumpy feeling that God gives you when you put something good on your heart. And I just appreciate you pushing us to be as consistent as we've been, because you're the driving force behind this. I appreciate you every single week having such good things to say and people to talk to. And I just really appreciate you, man. And I appreciate all of you listeners giving us the type of feedback that make us feel like we really are making a difference. If just one person can say, you know what, I feel a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit more prepared, or even just a little bit more seen, I think that we're doing a good work, because ultimately, we are going to touch millions of people, but it might not necessarily be through this podcast. It might be from your friend who had an issue with English and felt, you know what, I'm not going to give up. She keeps doing what she's doing, and she becomes a big deal and spreads her message to the next generation, who spreads their message to the next generation. And that person invents some type of agriculture that changes the world and saves 1 billion people. Who knows? But we're going to keep it up. And I just appreciate you for giving us this platform to do so, Mr. Anderson, and our listeners for liking, subscribing, and loving us like you do by giving us, just the encouragement. But do all the things, like press the button, hit the subscribe. I can promise you, if you do that, we will continue to try our absolute best to get awesome people on here that fill you up, and to continue making the type of content that really does impact you and makes a difference for you. So it's not a, hey, do this for us and we won't do nothing for you. Do this for us so we can continue to do this for you and try to do a better job, because we owe it to you to do our best.
Thank you, Solo, for saying so eloquently what I stumble over my words to say. So
it was good, bro. It was good.
Friends, one of the things that Solo and I agreed was most impactful from last week was David's story of coming to America. He wasn't able to communicate with his host family, wasn't able to communicate with anybody at school. He's the only one in his school that spoke Spanish. And the high schools in Houston are big. There's a lot of students. And so I'm sure he felt incredibly alone. And, the impact that all of this had on his self-confidence is, he was an A student and doing all the things, but suddenly having that impact to self-confidence, his feelings of self-worth and ability to succeed. So we wanted to dive deeper into this topic of self-doubt. But Solo, why was that so impactful to you?
So I think that anytime you hear about somebody who has a struggle that mirrors your own, and I can't say that I've ever had a struggle as big as David did, coming to America, not being able to communicate, having to work from having been at the top, being at the bottom, and working my way back up to the top. But what I can tell you is that I've struggled to fit in. I've a lot of my, because I am neurodivergent. I just went to an ERG and learned this the other day, that I guess I'm crazy. I have ADHD, so I'm bouncing off the walls, and that's why you guys see me doing all these all the time, and I'm watching these podcasts, doing clips, and it's like, bro, slow down, calm down. And, folks in sales and leaderships call it energy. I had a guy yesterday say, you're way too excited to be here right now on a Sunday. It's like, sorry, I'm just crazy. But I've struggled to fit in my entire life. And that struggle to fit in was just mirrored by his struggle to fit in. And it shows me that if he can do it, I can do it. I'm not alone in my struggle. I'm not alone in the things that I find difficult. I see people that have done big things, and I know that I can do big things. So I feel like for every problem, there's a person. God puts people in our lives to solve problems and to show you things that you need. And David was that person to show me, and I think a lot of others, that, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. And not only do it, but actually exceed any dream that you ever had. Yeah. He wanted to be a surgeon. That didn't come to fruition. Instead, God had a plan for him to be something bigger and better and more miraculous and wonderful than any surgeon has ever been on the planet. And he didn't know that back in the day. All he did know is that he's not going to quit. It's going to be hard. God is going to be with him, and he's going to make a way. And he made a way. And that way was an inspiring, beautiful story. So I think that if I could sum it up, is that all too often our trials become our testimonies, and listening to another's testimony is so powerful because it gives you hope. It gives you some fuel to continue pushing on your trial.
It's fascinating to hear you talk about yourself that way, Solo, because I know you quite well by this point. You and I have had a lot of conversations, and so I know some of the things that you've talked about, shared with me, and about doubt and things like that. But for most people, if they just see you in, the business setting, in the meetings, or outside of this at church, I know you do a leadership training thing with your church, they would have no idea that you have insecurities. For the Jacob Andersons of the world that, kind of stutter when they talk and aren't as eloquent, I'm the introverted side. I'm the introvert to match your extrovert, and I've got the ADD to match your hyperactive. I get so laser focused on something that I can't even focus on anything else. But we all struggle with this. I don't know of a single person that, if they're being honest with themselves, doesn't have insecurities or self-doubt. Doesn't matter whether they're the most beautiful, model and everybody's telling them how wonderful and beautiful this person is all the time. They still, at their core, are going to have their own insecurities, and they're going to feel doubt.
I mean, they're out there, but they're called psychopaths, sociopaths. Like, they exist. But for the normal folks, that voice of insecurity that I'm not enough, I'm too much of this, I'm too little of that. They look in the mirror and they're not the shape that they want to be. And they're not as eloquent, if to your example, as they may want to be, or whatever it is. It's just a normal human condition. It's a normal human condition. I tell my wife this all the time. She beats herself up because she just wishes she was a better mom. She wishes she was a better wife. And she's fantastic. Like, way more selfless than me, way more patient than I am, way more smart, kind, organized, all the things that you'd want to be. The most wonderful wife and mother you could ever possibly imagine. But she doesn't see it. She wants to be better. And I tell her, you saying that is proof that you are a good mother. You not feeling enough is proof that you are enough. Because the people that think that they're enough, or they think that they're great, those are the psychopaths, sociopaths that are not enough and not great. So I feel like this coin that we have, on one side is this self-doubt, and on the other side is this, righteousness, glory. They say, what do they say, Jake? They say that God makes those imperfect perfect, or like something about the Lord, making it perfect in your imperfection. And something, I just get that, and I read it and say, because I know I'm less than, God can use that to make me more than. But the second that I think that I'm everything, and I stop learning, I stop listening, I stop thinking that I need to reach for him or reach for others to help me, is the second that he can no longer use me. So it's kind of like this double-edged sword, but it cuts, but it cuts good. It's like a pruner's knife.
Yeah. I mean, the insecurities and, our weaknesses, if we want to call them our weaknesses, absolutely. God gives us weaknesses to keep us humble. And then when we turn to him, he can turn those weaknesses into strengths. But if we stop thinking that we have any weakness, and we are, that arrogance and pride creeps in, like you said, that's when a whole other problem happens. That's not doubt. I've thought about this for a long time. So I have wasted years, literally years of my life, giving up before I ever started.
Oh yeah.
And I a few years ago, I was at that Jack Canfield conference that I've talked to everybody about, multiple times. And I had this moment of inspiration, and I just started writing. And what came out is probably the most eloquent I've ever been in my life. And so I put it into a book. And in the book, Shine Brightly, you can find it at Amazon if anybody wants to. It's in prose, but I described it this way, and I really like this. It says, doubt, soft and silent, ever is near. You may not notice till it whispers in your ear. Give up your dream. Forget what's in your heart. You are sure to fail should ever you start.
Damn. You wrote that?
I wrote that.
That's good.
Hey, blind squirrel finds a nut every once.
Hey, that's good.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, it's the most eloquent I've ever been in my life was writing that book, and I know it was God inspiring me with the words. But we stop, like when self-doubt and these insecurities take over, when you give voice to them, and in the book, Morea Guevara was the illustrator, and we did doubt as a spider, and we illustrated doubt as a spider for the reason that these doubts, when they creep into your mind, it truly is like a web. And you get this one strand of a web, but if you focus on it and you dwell on this web, it allows the spider to just spin another and another until you're truly caught in this web of lies that you are telling yourself in your own mind. And Susie Kassem, if I said that last name right, she wisely said, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. I mean, how powerful is that? Doubt kills more of your dreams than you failing to achieve your dream ever will. We doubt our own ability. We listen to these lies in our head of, oh, you're not good enough. You don't have the talent, or you're not smart enough, or nobody likes you. And we have all these doubts, and it just cripples us. And we don't even give ourselves the opportunity to fail, much less fail forward, which allows us to ultimately succeed. And that is what took years of my life to figure out, is that I was lying to myself as a young person, and it kept me from so many things. It kept me from friendships because I was too scared to think that I doubted that I had anything to offer other people. And so I wouldn't even go introduce myself, and I missed out on friendships, I know, and relationships, travel experiences, because I was too scared to get on an airplane. Business ideas that I've had never started because of a lack of belief in my own amazing potential to create great things. And that amazing potential is in everybody if they have the belief to trust in themselves and trust in the higher power to guide them.
I freaking love that. That's so good. I feel like for me too, it's so much easier to focus on my inadequacies. Too much of this, I don't do that. Dang it, why do I keep getting tripped up on this habit or this negative proclivity? And it's like really easy to get cat of nine tails and just whipping myself for it. And just so the audience knows, I've struggled with, addiction my entire life. So I used to be a smoker, and quitting nicotine was extremely difficult. I remember, relapse after relapse. I used to always beat myself up on it so bad. I used to beat myself up. Why am I doing this? Why am I not strong enough? Why am I not disciplined? Because discipline is something very important to me. And I noticed that beating myself up, it didn't help. Like when you beat yourself up for the things that you think that you should do or things that you shouldn't do, it doesn't help. Like this mistreatment I had on myself didn't make the quitting the cigarettes any easier. But only when I switched my focus and I decided, I was at this conference. It was from Think 3D. Fantastic personal leadership development program, by the way. Tamium Dysart, CEO over there. Think 3D, shameless plug. Check them out. But we were at this retreat, and it hit me. If I want to change, I have to change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And if I was looking at my addiction and myself and I have to quit this and beating myself up, everything was going to stay the same. So I changed. It's you know what? I'm going to be hyper-focused on grace. I'm going to be hyper-focused on giving myself the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to be hyper-focused on the things that I am doing well, because there's many things I'm doing well. I'm a great father, a great husband. I work my butt off. I'm disciplined in 99.9% of the other areas. I'm a good friend. I'll sacrifice for others, yada, yada. And you say things like that to yourself, which feels uncomfortable. It feels weird. It feels weird even saying it in this podcast, right? It feels like you're tooting your own horn, but toot it. And when I started tooting my own horn, I noticed that little voice in me started agreeing. It's yeah, you are. Okay, you are. And yeah, you can quit this. Ain't nothing. I'll just put it down. It's all good. And I feel like me getting switched from hyper-focused on what I was doing wrong to hyper-focused on what I was doing right and the grace that I should give myself really changed things. Because I feel what was that? Who wrote that deepest fear poem? What was it? Marianne Williamson? The one that says our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens ourselves. I really, truly believe that that's the case. The deepest fear isn't that we're too much of this and too much of that. Our deepest fear is that these dreams that we have hidden in our heart, that we tell ourselves, I'm a wonderful singer and you know it, but you're scared to show it. I'm a fantastic X, Y, or Z, and you know it, but you're scared to show it. Those are the things that scare you the most, because if I try, if I go after it, if I don't let the doubt stop me and I really do it and I fail, what am I? What am I if I'm not this thing that I know that I am, but I'm not going to try to prove that I am, because if I fail at it, then what am I? What do I have if I don't have that? Mm-hmm. Those are some of the things that I think that doubt does to us, stops us, and handcuffs us. Our hypervigilance on the things that we're not doing right that stop us from going after our big dreams. Because if we fail, if we mess up, if we are those worst things that we say about ourselves, and we're not that one or two things that are hidden in our heart that we really truly know ourselves to be, it would defeat us. It would break us. But I think that that's just a trick of the enemy. You are those things. So I had this epiphany. I've had a couple epiphanies in the shower. I'm a shower epiphany hour, okay?
That's where people do their best thinking. So
they do our best thinking.
It's also where they do their best singing.
Right? I had this epiphany that is escaping me at the moment.
It's hard to write down your good thoughts in the shower.
Yeah, I know, right? What was I going to say? Let me pass it back to you and let me think about what I was just about to say.
Yeah, remember that. So while you're thinking about that, I'm going to share something Kobe Bryant said. So Kobe Bryant is an absolute hero of mine, as so many others. Like we all love Mamba, right? The Black Mamba. So the coolest thing. So he's asked in this interview I'm about to share about doubts and what insecurities that the great Kobe Bryant has. And so let me see if I can share this.
While you do, I thought of it. So while you grab it, I had this epiphany. That the big dreams that God hides in our heart are for a reason, and they're not for what we think that they are. For example, President of the United States. There's a little girl or little boy out there that wants to be the President of the United States. Mm-hmm. And God has hidden that big dream in their heart because he knows that it is impossible for her to become the President of the United States without God's direct help and leaning on him. So God puts these big dreams in our heart because he knows that to accomplish those big dreams, we have to get closer to him. And ultimately, getting closer to him is his goal that he wants for us. So the enemy uses our doubt. It uses our insecurity. It uses all these negative voices to stop us going after those big dreams in our heart, because he knows that if he keeps us away from those things, maybe, just maybe, we won't draw closer to God and we won't accomplish what God ultimately wants, which is to get close to him in communion with him. And I realized that. And I said, you know what? F that. If the best way to get closer to God is to go for my dreams, and the best way to do that is to forget about what I'm telling myself and say what he tells myself and go after those things in my heart, I'm going to do it. And it's worked out pretty well. And I can tell you this, those big dreams that I hid in my heart, like David, I thought it was the president. I thought it was the surgeon, but it wasn't. But I could tell you, it doesn't even matter what it was, because the goal of getting closer to God is accomplished. And that is worth more presidency, more surgery. It's worth its weight in gold.
It's awesome, Solo. Right? He has to. How do I say this? You know, I've always been taught, and I truly believe that God is just the most perfect and loving of fathers. And it wasn't until I was a father myself that this truly struck home for me. Because, like, I would walk through lava for my kids. And if I, in my imperfection, because I am not a perfect father, I do my best. And thankfully, my kids forgive me when I mess up. But if I, in my imperfection, want nothing more than for them to be successful and happy and to become the best version of themselves that they can be, how much more does my heavenly Father want that for me?
Yeah.
And so what are these finite ideas that I have as a human that's, you know, only going to be in this existence for, you know, 80 to 100 years maybe, right? If in my limited view of myself, I have these what I consider great ideas, how much bigger are his ideas of what he wants to make of me?
So good.
So I love that idea. So that was a great epiphany.
So you think about like it's our light that scares us most. And the light and our greatness, those dreams that are hidden in our heart, is what gets us to draw closer to God. I thought about another shower epiphany. What is that? What's that? Is it a poem? It actually has to be in the Bible. This is definitely biblical. It says, "Let your light so shine so that others may see your good works and glorify your Father that is in heaven."
Sermon on the Mount there, Solo.
There it is. Yeah, exactly. That's JC for you. That's Jesus. So I thought about that, and I always thought that meant, let your light so shine. Let others see you shining, see you being your best, see you out there doing big things so that they glorify their Father in heaven, right? So you give glory because they're seeing you be your best. And I had an epiphany, that's not what it is. So I bought what I think is both of our dream car. I got the Tesla, bro. The Model
you have
S.
both of our dream car, yes.
That's what
Thanks
I'm
for
saying.
rubbing it in again.
It's the coolest. It's the best. I never thought I would be able to afford it. I still have no idea how it happened. This is all God right there. But I was sitting in this car, and I was looking at the steering wheel, and I almost started bawling because it's like, God, you gave me something that I never thought was possible. Mm-hmm. And I just started thanking him, and I felt this reverence come over my body that was just so thanks. And all of a sudden, I felt God say, you see what happens when you shine? So you create a good work so others can glorify your Father in heaven. And I thought, Elon, right, wrong, or indifferent, people could think whatever he wants to think, but he was grinding to be his best, to create something fantastic, which is an electric vehicle that they ultimately jumped in this company and brought it to market as a Tesla that evolved whatever, yada, yada, yada. He let his light so shine so that others may see his good works. I was looking upon his good works, the Tesla I got, and I glorified my Father in heaven. And it's because of his dedication to be his best and to create the thing that God put in his heart. And he drew closer to God because of that. And because of that good work, I drew closer to God because of it. And it's like a vicious cycle. So you have to let your light shine. You have to be your best, not just because it's going to draw you closer to God, but it'll draw others closer to God that you may never even see. We may never even understand the impact that this podcast is going to do on somebody, but there's somebody listening, and hopefully, maybe, just maybe, if we shine bright enough, we can create a good work that others will look upon and glorify their God in heaven because it's exactly what they needed to hear.
And the way to get past that, or the way to let your light shine, friends, is you have to get out of your own head and get out of your way. And so I'm going to share this with Kobe, because Kobe got out of his way, man. And everybody started getting out of Kobe's way when he came driving down the court as well. So let's listen to what he's got to say.
What doubts do you have about yourself internally?
It's not, I've never, doubt is such a strange thing. I mean, it's, there'll be times where you succeed and there are times that you fail. So wasting your time doubting whether you're going to be successful or not is pointless. It is. I mean, you just put one foot in front of the other. You control what you can't control. And then you see what the outcome is, right? If you win, great. You're going to have to wake up the next day and do the journey over again. If you lose, it sucks, but you're going to have to wake up the next day and do the journey all over again anyway.
What doubts?
Dang, bro.
Why do you waste time doubting? Why waste your energy doubting? Because if you doubt, and so you don't even take the first step, you've already failed. Michael Jordan famously said, well, he's taken all these shots and been trusted to take the game-winning shot over and over, right? And he's been trusted over and over, and X number of times, I don't remember what it was, right? He failed. And that is why he succeeds, he says. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I love the way that the Mamba said this. Why waste your time? He's like, it's such a strange thing. Because you're either going to win or lose. That is the one thing that's guaranteed. You're either going to succeed or you're going to fail. So why waste your time doubting which is going to happen? Go out, take the journey, take those first steps, and if you win, awesome. And if you lose, the next day, get up and go again.
Because it's about that next day, get up and go again, right? It's about what you said, like that journey. I found myself, so this weekend was a nightmare at work. It was a nightmare. It was a, hey, what are you doing today? Hanging out with the fam. What are you doing? Nothing, but can you not do that? And come in and work until midnight, Saturday and Sunday? It's like, well, that doesn't sound fun to me. Well, that's what we're going to need you to do. Now, obviously, that wasn't really the ask or the conversation. And I willingly jumped in because I love what I do. I honestly love my boss. I love working with you, and I love all the people we do. So I willingly and excitedly jumped in to help, but it still sucked.
Oh, yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, at the end of that process, we won. We had a goal and we overachieved our goal, and no one thought it was possible. Our CEO said, we're the team that makes what seems impossible possible. So please go out there and make the impossible possible. And we did it. We made the impossible possible, and it felt so good to win the game. And then I went to sleep, head on my pillow. I woke up and I realized, like, holy crap, the game is still going. I don't get a break. I don't get it's going to be an easy day. In fact, that same sense of urgency, fire, heat that I felt the day before was still at that temperature today. And I was kind of butthurt about it. Like, it's just back to back. And is there ever going to be a break? And And when you just play that, I realized whether you win, which is great, or you lose, which sucks, the rinse and repeat is probably the most important. The understanding that the game is never over. What does Simon Sinek call it? Infinite game, right? The infinite game. It's not a finite game. It's not today and then you're going to win and then everything's going to be hunky-dory for the rest of your life. It's an infinite game. Every day you get to choose to wake up and be your best. Every day you're going to get hit with that. Am I going to listen to my demons or am I going to listen to my higher self? And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But you always get a chance again to start, or you always get another chance to start. And I think that embracing the journey, to your point, is probably the most powerful thing that we can do when it comes to facing self-doubt. Just do it anyway. And when you do good, keep going. And when you do bad, keep going. I think your mic cut out.
Here's the guy that muted himself. That was this guy.
That's okay.
So I want to play one more because before we have some tips for you, friends. I want to really focus on what are things that each of us can do on a regular basis to get past to break out of the web of self-doubt. And there's one more video I want to share, and I thought this was so powerful, and I feel kind of weird saying this, but Conan O'Brien inspired me.
I like Conan.
I love Conan, but I didn't know if he was going to be the inspiration for me today when we're talking about self-doubt.
Conan's hilarious. Conan
is hilarious, and that's why I was surprised that he was
Are we talking O'Brien or the Barbarian? Who are we talking here?
Not Arnold, yeah. So here we go. So Conan is truly great. He's super funny. But he's doing his podcast. So we're gonna show some of Conan's podcast, and I love this, and I think it's a perfect way to introduce the tips that we're going to share on how to overcome self-doubt, because they work.
Just real quick before you play it, Conan, if you're listening to this, don't hit us with any copyright stuff on YouTube, bro. Okay, you can afford it. We're trying to start off, so help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. And your podcast is advertised on the screen, so I think we're good.
There you go.
So how can I help you, sir?
So I watched the hour-long special on how you got late night, and I wanted to know, after those first early tenuous years, when did you realize that you were good and kind of gain some confidence?
It took a super long time, to be honest with you. And it's funny because I remembered a young person, they had a bunch of college students come in just a few years ago when we were doing the show over at Warner Brothers, the Conan show, and she said, when does the nervousness and self-doubt end? And I said, I have really bad news for you. There's always some of that, So yeah, we had kind of a interesting introduction to late night television. It was at the time a really big deal that an unknown person was getting this show. And so I kind of had to learn how to do the job in front of everybody. And man, people had very strong opinions, many of them negative, but young people really liked it. And I think that was nice, but I didn't know that. I was not aware of that. And I only found out about it till much later on when those young people grew up into and became really successful comedians. And they would say, oh, your show, we used to watch your show all the time. That was the show we really loved. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? Why, John Mulaney? Why didn't you tell me? He was like, I was 9. Why would you have listened to a 9-year-old? And I said, I would have listened to anybody. I would have been so happy. So it took a while. It took a number of years, and to just, and insecurity and all those things that people have. And I just like to be really honest about the fact that it never quite goes away. You're always hoping, is this good enough? Was that okay? Could this be better? I mean, it goes back to, I know it sounds like I was doing a bit, yelling at myself in the mirror at 3 o'clock in the morning, but that still happens. It doesn't go on too long because my wife's not having it. But yeah, there's some unhealthy elements probably that go into doing this day in and day out and wanting it to be, special or good. And I think trying to figure all that out has taken me a long time, but marrying the right person really helped. Having great kids helped, and, getting some help really helped. I'm very vocal about that. I think people should should be very open to talk therapy if they need it, and if they do it responsibly, getting on meds, stuff like that. I think that has made a huge difference in my life. So, but it took.
So I loved that. The simple fact that someone so successful still struggles with insecurity.
Yeah, it's good to know.
But he fights through it. And that is, I think, the biggest takeaway as we go through this is you have to fight through it. There's going to be moments, but it's, are you going to feed your doubts, or are you going to feed your faith? Your faith in God, your faith in yourself, and your own abilities as well. Because everybody has talents. Everybody has the potential to achieve their wildest dreams, but it takes getting out of your way. Mm-hmm. And so there's some tips, and these truly work. I'm one of the most insecure people of all time, I swear. And
really? I wouldn't know that.
We've talked about it, right? I fight through this, and I shared previous episode, right, talking about how I kind of just overcame a lot of self-confidence issues, and it truly has taken years. And so everything that I'm going to share truly works, and I'm going to start with the first one that Conan talked about this a little bit. And that is positive self-talk. And I don't mean this, you just, positive affirmations all the time, although that has its place. But 2 things. At the start of your day, look at yourself in the mirror, and you don't have to yell at yourself like Conan was saying, but you do need to remind yourself of what makes you great. And the reason you do this at the start of the day is it builds you up and builds up your belief in yourself. And this can be as simple as, I am intelligent. I am loved. I am loving to others. I am successful, right? Whatever it is, remind yourself of what makes you great, because we all have that.
I love that.
At the end of your day, you do the same thing, except you're going to talk to yourself about your wins for that day. What is it that you accomplished during the day? And this sends you to bed without going through in a negative spot because you're watching the news and you're worried that the world's burning, right? But instead, you go and you have this positive stuff in your mind. And then your self-conscious takes over, and all night your self-conscious is running on your subconscious, not self-conscious. Your subconscious is running on overdrive, reiterating all these positive messages to yourself. And so, what are some wins? Could be, I got up and exercised. I ate healthy today. I introduced myself to somebody new. I made 50 cold calls until I finally got that sale, or 150, or whatever it was, right? I got past all the rejection and closed the deal. Or when it's really bad, when you're really struggling, it could be as simple as I got out of bed and I got dressed.
Yeah.
Because there are those days for a lot of us too.
I love that. I'll plug Tammy in again and Think 3D. He calls those bookends. Les Brown says, how you start the day sets the tone and the spirit for the rest of your day. And I found that to be true. I like to personally, and I would suggest anybody who may not be at the level where they believe themselves, because there's a certain amount of, I would say, self-respect that you have to have before you start believing when you say good things about you. And that takes some time to get there. So if you don't have that amount of self-respect, that self, I'm somebodyness, then I would go to what the Bible said, seek first the kingdom of God, and all things will be added unto thee, right? Don't go to what you say about you, but go to what God says about you. You're a mighty warrior. You're the head and you're not the tail. You're above, not beyond. Pull up that Bible app and listen to that. And don't just read the first line like we all do, right? Seek first the kingdom of God. Let me get my Bible app. Okay, news. But sit with it for a while. Meditate on it for a while.
Yep.
Why is that true? Look for evidence why you're the head and not the tail. Above, not below. Look for the evidence. And I really love the bookend of the winds. That's powerful. Because I feel like if you're a pilot, how you take off and how you land are typically the tough parts, right?
Yep.
If you get a perfect takeoff and you get a perfect landing, the rest of the day, the rest of the flight, you're really on autopilot. You're getting cookies, you're getting drinks, but the pilot's hands are on that throttle on takeoff and on landing. So if you just nail those two things, how you start your day and how you end your day, I feel like you'll have a pretty good flight. And the rest of it, you might have some turbulence, and you probably will, right? But you're going to take off safely and land safely, and that'll probably help the flight. So that was really good advice, man.
No, thank you. And to your point of, if you're not there where you feel like you're lying to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to listen to this quote, friends, if that's you. It says, "You don't become confident, or you don't overcome your doubts by shouting at yourself in the mirror. You build it or overcome it by building a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt." And that's Alex Hormozy. And here's how you build that stack of undeniable evidence
That's
that
so
you
good.
are fantastic. Get a sheet of paper, do it on your computer or on your phone if you want. Make a list of 100 things that you have achieved in your life.
Ooh.
Full 100. Don't stop at 50 when you start to run out of the easy ideas. Get all the way to 100. And I promise you, to everybody listening, you have well over 100 things that you have done in your life, achievements.
Oh, for sure.
What does that do for you? That builds that stack of undeniable proof that you're a superhero, that you are a superstar, and that you can go do hard things. And when I did this myself, I got to about 50, 60, and it started to get a little tough. And
It was
so
tough.
then I started thinking it. I had to think a little deeper, and it's like, you know what? I learned how to walk. Sounds kind of
did.
silly. I can run now too. I
You
might
can
look a
jump.
little goofy when I do it, but I can run. But I learned how to walk. And you know what? Just because nearly everybody else that is alive today has done it, that is past the age of 1 year old, doesn't mean that at 1 year old, that was not a huge accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I passed kindergarten too. I learned all my
Amen.
colors. I learned the alphabet. You can't tell by listening to me talk that I learned the alphabet in the English language, but I did. And you know what? I made it through high school and I made it through college. And all along the way, every single one of those steps took time. It took a lot of energy and it was tough. At
And there's
that
pain.
age, at that time in my life, it was a challenge and I overcame it and I accomplished it.
And there was a lot of pain too, right?
Yeah.
Like I imagine going back to 1 year old Jake, wobbling, falling over. You probably had some boo-boos, some scraped elbows, knees, lots of tears, but you don't remember that. You don't remember those things. So
good
while
call.
you're going through the struggle and you're dealing with the bumps, the bruises, the scrapes, the boo-boos, just know that this too shall pass. Like it will heal. And what will replace it is that confidence in your own somebodyness. I feel like that quote, can you just hit that poem that quote one more time for our boy Alex Hormozy? Shout out, hashtag Alex.
Absolutely. So you don't become confident or overcome your doubts, is my add-in, by shouting at yourself in the mirror. You build it by building a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt.
I love that. I feel like one of the biggest things that I've done to combat my self-doubt is doing hard things. To your point, not even necessarily being intentional about writing down things I've accomplished, but really doing some introspection and thinking about some of the things that I've overcome. And when you think about some of the battles that you've overcome, it gives you the sense of self-worth. It's the hard things that give you the biggest lift in life. And for our gamers out there, you know it. You fight a trash mob, you get this much experience. You fight that endgame boss, you're leveling up. And we could look at that endgame boss, that struggle, as a bad thing. I can't believe it. This is so hard. This is so tough. This is something that I will never be able to overcome. Or we could look at it like, hell yeah. This is an opportunity for me to level up. I don't know why we don't think about it like that. And no, you're not crazy if you're like me and the rest of the planet, which see obstacles and struggles and things that we have to overcome as problems. That's just how we're built, right? I'm built for an easy life. I want to sit back and eat ice cream and cookies all day too. But it's those hard times. It's those tough things. It's those what seems impossible, insurmountable, that give you the opportunity to overcome them. And when you do, and to Jake, your point, you will, because 100% of the things that you've faced thus far, you've overcome because you're here. So when you do overcome that big thing, you'll be able to look back on it and say, you know what? Maybe I am somebody. Because if I was a nobody, I wouldn't have been able to fight that boss. If I was a nobody, I wouldn't have been able to overcome that challenge. If I was a nobody, I would not have been able to accomplish what I accomplished in the face of these insurmountable odds. And when you start talking to you like that, that's when the affirmations and the things in the mirror and the stuff you write down really start to stick.
100%. Right. And you hit on the last principle that I wanted to hit on as well, which is action. We all want to be comfortable. We've talked about that on our episode on adversity. But Mel Robbins talks about these 5-second windows. And she says, when you have to do something that is a little uncomfortable, and then the doubt, that negativity, and the excuses start creeping in, that is the moment you have to move. Right? You cannot dwell on it, friends. Kick out those thoughts. My wife went to a class and came out of it. And one of the things that she shared with me that has stuck with me is that they call it stinking thinking. You got to kick out the stinking thinking because we all do it. Don't dwell on it. Right? Going back to the quote at the very start of this podcast, feed your faith and your doubts will starve to death.
That's good. Thank God for just fantastic wives. I feel like Conan said something pretty powerful. Marrying the right person helped.
Yep.
God, has that helped me?
Me too.
I feel so sorry for folks that are surrounded by people that don't speak victory into their lives. That don't scratch your back and rub your shoulders and tell you that you're more than you're thinking that you are when you're just in a bad spot, because we all get in that spot. And I would tell those people that you deserve to surround yourself with people who believe in your own worthiness. I know it's not easy. I know it's not tough, especially to the young folks who may be surrounded by parents or guardians that aren't exactly the most positive of folk. But do everything that you can to find and surround yourself with people who believe in you. And for the young folks, I don't know why it works like this, but the ones you're wanting, you ain't getting. And the ones you're getting, you ain't wanting. And you will one day realize that that should be flipped. Don't spend your time chasing after the people that seem to be sprinting away from you or do not see your value. Spend the time with the people that are investing in you, that care about you, that want to be around you, that will lift you up and fill you up. Because I can promise you that is more important than anything that you will ever do. Surrounding yourself with the Jake Andersons, the folks like Conan's wife, the people that say that you are worthy, that you're more than. Because a lot of the times, if you're like me, you're not going to believe yourself. In fact, you will believe yourself when you say things like, I can't do this, or this is too much, or I'm overwhelmed, or I don't know how I'm going to win in this situation. And you always want to surround yourself with people that say, yeah, right. You got this. You're strong. You're fantastic. You're brilliant. You're wonderful. In fact, I'm gonna hit my wife up right after this and just tell her how much I appreciate her. That goes back to our gratitude. And appreciate
challenge.
the people that are in your life that do that, right? But the one thing that I will say, in closing here for me, is that no, you're not crazy. We all feel less than. No matter if you were that elementary school kid that didn't fit in, you were the junior high Jake that friends turned on him, you were the high school David who couldn't communicate and was flunking, or you're the grown man solo that has a veneer up of confidence but insecurities could eat you alive. It never goes away. You will always feel like you're not enough. You will always see this gap of where you are versus where you thought you should be. And in that gap is insecurity and doubt, and it's natural. But that insecurity and that doubt gives you the ability to face it, to overcome it, and to do that time and time again enough to look back and, like Alex and Jake just said, build a case, insurmountable truth. What did he say?
Indisputable evidence.
Indisputable evidence
Yeah.
of your own self-worth and awesome. So you're not crazy, but it is going to be hard, but you're in light company.
It's well said, Solo. And friends, you can do it. And you can do hard things because when you look back at all of the hard things you've already done, you've already done all these hard things. And that's how you build faith. It's building faith in your own abilities. And since we're all, imperfect human beings, when you want to level it up even further, look at all the times that you've had God or Allah or whatever your belief system is, right? Look at the help you've had. And that builds your faith in the higher power that is there to support you in those really hard moments. When you feel like you can't get through it on your own, know that you have a higher power that is there that cares about you and will help you through it.
That's right.
So know that you can do it. Know that it's natural to have doubt, as Solo was saying, but kick out those thoughts. Replace them instead with the belief in yourself. And as Mel Robbins was saying, those 5-second action windows, right? When the doubts start creeping in, kick them out and go take action. As Kobe Bryant said, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Quit worrying about which it's going to be and just go do it. And the next day, go do it again. And those wins will outweigh the losses. So we love you, friends. This is Iron Sharpens Iron, signing off until next week.